Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, today's episode, we are going to discuss the art of war. The art of war. And what is the art of war now in 2024 going into 2025 compared with the art of war, say, in the 1300s? Well, obviously, a lot has changed, and a lot has not changed. So, we are called the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. Now, that first part, military, is key. Not just because we cover military affairs, but the reality is that war, conflict, is part of the human condition. It has been omnipresent since we crawled out of caves and engaged each other in open warfare with clubs over carcasses of meat. That's a fact. I find it entertaining that some of the content providers that I will also from time to time listen to will always at the end of their content, in some cases, this isn't everyone, will offer some sort of apology in the form of we want universal peace and la-di-da, right? Well, look, that's not going to happen. Unless the entire species of humanity becomes under the influence of some sort of mind-altering medication that changes the human condition, war will always be present. It will always be present in some form or another. And the reality is, it really doesn't change too much. The size and scope changes, and throughout history, it has become bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, specifically here in the United States, we are eventually going to be involved in a very large scale, what we call near peer conflict. And that near peer conflict right now appears to be in which the direction of history is pointing. That would be a United States, maybe un-United States, maybe the United States is in some sort of civil conflict of its own, joined possibly with some Western European allies, engaged in open war with, in all probability, China and or a Russo-China alliance, with other nations also joining those nation states. It's just the highest probability of major conflict right now. That could change, and things could change, and obviously that may not happen. But where we're heading right now, that is the direction in terms of the next large world war, so to speak. It may look a little different, but at the end of the day, it will be very much a large-scale, non-proxy conflict. Non-proxy conflict, meaning direct engagement, direct open warfare. Now, back in the 30s, back in the 20s, 40s, 1940s, you've heard the term arsenal of democracy. During World War II, and even to some extent during World War I, we had the opportunity to watch U.S. industrial might come into play building tanks, rifles, aircraft to support a war effort. Now, fast forward to 2025, expanding out to 2030. Does the U.S. have the industrial capacity? Does it have the industrial wherewithal to become the arsenal of democracy again? I think in some cases it does. I think it'll be slower and it will take some time to possibly ramp up. The Chinese are vastly outpacing the United States right now in terms of future-facing military-industrial capacity. Now, interesting issue that has appeared is new technology. And are some of these new technologies that we're seeing embraced here in the United States, and even in some cases China, are those industries applicable to convert certain industries into military industries? Case in point, electric vehicles. There are about 3 very large electric vehicle companies here in the United States that have factories that produce thousands of electric vehicles per year. Those electric vehicles consume huge amount of resources per EV that is produced. Now, they don't release emissions, which for the ideologically captured left, that is a good thing, or they believe that. But could these large EV companies, be retrofitted in some way to support a total war scenario? I guess my concern with the EV industry and EV industry in particular is listening to some of their earnings calls. And the one of the big concerns that I have is centered on those businesses' requirements for regulation. The big 3 EV companies right now really require federal or state regulation, meaning regulate, remove the ability to purchase a gas-powered car, no matter how effective they become, and or hybrids, and then require you, these states and these federal governments require you, or the federal government requires you to purchase an electric vehicle. That is why when you hear these earnings calls for these 3 large electric vehicle companies, they tend to mention regulation. Regulation is part of their business plan. Now, is that correct? Is that right? Should a government, state, federal government, dictate the kind of vehicle that you drive, thus, in a roundabout way, directly helping, assisting a manufacturer of a certain product that may not be accepted by the general market unless the general market is forced to adopt that product through regulation. That's why they mentioned it during their earnings call. Now, in the case of a outbreak of total war, And again, I'm looking at the EV industry in particular when it comes to armed conflict. The batteries that are used in these electric vehicles, you hear about the quote unquote artesian cobalt mining industry, obviously lithium, but one of the most practical, one of the most important metals that are in an electric vehicle is nickel. Nickel is also used to make military vehicles, military production. Nickel. The EV industry consumes vast amounts of nickel. But could the U.S. EV industry, could it be retrofitted to make military products? Would the EV industry, given its nature, would it even desire to make military products? Well, we don't know the answer to that. In all probability, it would take some time for a EV factory here in the United States to retrofit, convert, retool to start producing military items. Very difficult to do. But it is even possible in the age we're in now for the United States to really ramp up and start producing weapons and equipment for what would have to be a multi-million personnel armed forces if and when a major armed conflict erupts between a Russo-Chinese alliance. What happens? Very concerning. Very, very concerning. Even for instance, the largest DoD item right now that is being procured and manufactured, the F-35 Lightning. Very good aircraft. And in all probability, give it another 10 years, it will eventually work out a lot of these existing design flaws. But if we need to produce massive amounts, meaning thousands upon thousands of these F-35 Lightnings, could other industries in the United States retool and start producing F-35s? And the answer to that is absolutely not. Lockheed Martin. That's who can produce it. So unlike World War II, where we saw other companies not necessarily making military equipment, World War II, they were able to retrofit very quickly. And again, technology is different now versus then. Understandable. So the answer to the big question is no. It would be very difficult for the United States to convert and become this renewed arsenal of democracy. And what that tells us is that if there is a major armed conflict, again, between the United States and a Russo-Chinese alliance, it is going to be very difficult for the United States to be victorious. It's going to be tough, incredibly tough. And again, especially, and this is very important, when the U.S. capitalist system is creating items that the government is telling you you have to purchase. That is not sustainable. Again, it is general market acceptance, meaning you, an ordinary citizen of the United States or whatever country you're in, and if you live in a market economy, you accept that product because you see a value in that product and you want to purchase that product. Not because the government is telling you you have to purchase it. Because of climate change or whatever ideology is prominent at the moment. And that's the environment we're living in right now. So again, if we accept that war is part of the human condition, that in all likelihood we will see a major world war occur again, that is all but certain. 99.99% certain that there will be another large-scale world conflict. Absolutely. How is the U.S. positioned for that event? What happens? If there is large-scale rationing and there is a requirement of this nickel, does the EV industry even exist at the onset of World War? Probably not. Food for thought, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.